Violence and Community Violence Organization, and my question is for Debbie. You said how NYPD is trained, which we know there is a training that they have to follow. I sit on NYPD's Domestic Violence Training Advisory Board, and I think one of our issues isn't whether or not there's a training material, it's more about how is it implemented, and then what are the consequences that happen when officers are not doing the training that they had correctly when it comes to domestic violence.
They get disciplined. And believe it or not, one of my functions in the NYPD as the second in charge, I oversee the discipline in the NYPD. So.
And what does that discipline look like? Like, what would it entail?
So it depends.
We have a lot of situations where, unfortunately, we do understand that domestic violence officers are not the officers that respond when 911 is called to a domestic situation in a household. So those aren't the officers that will be coming to the person's home, meaning they don't have the intensive more training that DV officers do go through. So how do we now, what does that look like when they are now being combative to victims of domestic violence? They can't identify who is the actual perpetrator, because I've just had to help a survivor who had order protection. She indicated she had the order protection. The person falsely accused her of attacking him, yet she was the person that was arrested. He wasn't in the home, she hadn't seen him, she is scared to death of this person, however, she was arrested.
Did she have a stay-away order?
She had an order of protection.
Or was it a stay-away order? Because if it was a stay-away order, then he would have been detained.
Yes, the order of protection indicates on it what is not allowed and what is allowed. So now, he made a false claim and called
can I get
and said, hold on, let me just answer his question.
I understand. I just want to be specific, because if he had a stay-away order, then they would immediately remove him.
He wasn't in the home, that's what I'm saying.
No, a stay-away order means that they cannot come within a certain amount of feet of you.
I know what it is.
So if there was, I'm not defending the officers, but when you think about that situation, right? A lot of times people don't even understand those specifics. They don't understand the need for compliance with those things. So what I'm just trying to interject is that in that instance, clearly the officers did not understand, they may not have understood the procedure, did not disseminate it properly to the people affected by the situation. And also I find that a lot of people, when they receive these documents, they don't understand all the information and what they should adhere to. So there's a big issue in terms of information. So it sounds to me, in my opinion, like there was some misinformation, not necessarily on the victim side, but in terms of the gentleman who did not adhere to that court order.
And that's why there are some things that there are people who fall through the cracks, and that's what we're,
Yeah, that's the point. The question is,
Let's let the commissioner respond.
Well, if you let me answer
So
if you let me answer the question, I'll answer it for you, right?
okay.
Thank you. So again, not every situation is a perfect situation, and I don't know your friend, the woman's situation, your client's situation, so I'm not gonna talk on it. But what I will say, the officers are not gonna arrest someone for no probable cause. So I will tell you that, right? And I'm sure that she is a victim of domestic violence. Obviously, if she's afraid of him, but that doesn't mean that the officers was wrong in their response either, right? Because the officers, we can't make an arrest unless we have probable cause. So if he lied or, we can't tell who's lying, who's not lying. If we respond to a house and we have two people that physically assaulted each other, right? And they both say that they want each other arrested, which means cross complainants, we, as the NYPD, can tell who the primary physical aggressor is. And at that point, the patrol supervisor will come and say, all right, Tanya Mojavier is the primary physical aggressor. We're gonna arrest her or Tony, right? So that's how it goes. And number two is every officer in the NYPD is trained to respond to domestic violence situations. Domestic violence officers are further trained in investigative fields, but every officer is trained to respond to domestic violence jobs,
Yes, I know.
every job. And as far as discipline, the severity, it depends on the severity, right? So we're not gonna crucify someone for a minor, situation, the discipline gets further with the intensity. But I will tell you this, we don't play around with domestic violence and domestic violence jobs. So if an officer or officers is caught, doing something they're not supposed to be doing or don't respond in the way that they should, we do not, that's something that we don't take lightly, and they would be highly disciplined. As far as what the discipline is, it's different. I can't tell you that, we have a discipline matrix. And so I can't tell you what exactly the overall discipline would be, but they will be disciplined. And I will further tell you that we don't have, we don't really have a lot of many situations where we have to discipline officers in domestic violence situations. Because that's something in the police department that we do not play with. Because unfortunately, we had situations in prior years where, young women have lost their lives for situations that, we've been to the house before, we've seen the warning signs. So no one wants to be that officer that's gone to the house and seen the warning signs, and then, we really didn't do much about it. Nobody wants that on their head. So we've come such a long way. We have come such a long way as an agency in combating domestic violence, and hence why we have an entire domestic violence unit where it's made up of a chief and many officers underneath her, and a domestic violence inspections team that also goes out to the commands. They will watch cops handle domestic violence jobs and make sure that they're checking the checks and balances.
We know how sensitive and careful these matters have to be adhered to with compassion. Our NYPD officers that handle domestic violence really need compassion. I want to just pivot real quickly to Safe Horizons. That Safe Horizons has a public-private